All right, points from a linear function are shown in the table below. What is the slope of the line containing the points in the table? So how do we find slope from a table? Is it on your formula chart? Yeah, well, good. I'm glad. So I can pick 2 points here. It doesn't really matter which ones I pick. I'm going to pick these 2 right here. And I've got, this is my x1 and my x2, my y1, my y2. And I'm going to do the change in y over the change in x. And the problem most people, the thing they do wrong is they do the change in x over the change in y. Can't do that. It won't work. I bang my head against the wall every day in 8th grade. Okay? M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And you know, you don't necessarily have to write it out because I get it, all right? But you need to somehow relate that it's y over x. So I'm going to do this the long way, all right, just to show you. So I got 3 minus what? I got y2 minus a negative 5 over x2 negative 3 subtract negative 5. And I end up, oh, what happens here? It changes the sign, doesn't it? It's a plus plus, and I get 8, and I get a plus plus, and I get 2. Positive 2 is correct. And so 8 over 2 gives me 4. So the slope of my line is 4. All right? That was rough, wasn't it? Okay. I don't have anything unless it's under your desk, which your desk is right there. Check the shelf. Other than that, I didn't find anything anywhere. All right, so let's think. How can slope be determined from a graph, table, or 2 points? All right, table and 2 points. I'm trying to shorthand. You're going to do the, does everybody know when I do this? I know I've said it, but I mean the change. Yes? Okay. All right. Change in y over the change in x. Or you're going to use what? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, if it's a graph, what do we do? How do we find slope from a graph? Thank you, Rise. I didn't hear it. I'm sorry, I'm old. Rise over run, okay? All right, how can slope be determined from an equation? Well, y equals mx plus b, and m equals slope. So if you change your equation to y equals mx plus b, that's how. For standard equations, which are ax plus by is equal to c, you use, my goodness. Isn't that amazing? All right, how is point slope form of an equation related to the formula for slope? If point form is solved solved for M, the equation is transformed to slope form. And your point slope form is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So you can transform that to a y equals equation real easy. Okay? Everybody got it? No? Next notes. Next. The graph shows an increase in the value of Maria's company over a period of years. What is the rate of change? Rate of change is the same as what? Hey, gentlemen.
Rate of change is your slope.
Rate of change is your slope. So slope is the same as rate of... Will you stop talking, please? Change, which is the same as unit rate. Remember, on a graph, you're going to use rise over run. So if I do this, if it's in the origin, always start at the origin. What kind of equation is that, by the way? Proportional or non-proportional? What? Proportional, because it includes the origin. And it's a linear line. That's correct. Okay? So if I do rise over run, you guys have to be very careful about your intervals, because your intervals will never, ever, ever probably be 1. Okay? So I've gone up how much? 500 and gone over 2. What if I went up to 250 and over to 1? Right? Okay, either way is the same. Okay, so M is 250 over 1. So what does the slope mean? Let's look at the chart. It says the value in thousands of dollars, and it says time. We're talking about an increase in the value of money, Maria's company, over a period of years. So what does that 250 over 1 mean? What does it mean? So what would that be? She's gaining how much money? Not 250. Please don't look at what this says. You have to read your graph. 250,000 per year. Not a whole lot. So, let's look at the line. A negative slope looks like what? It's going down from left to right. A positive slope goes up from left to right. What does a vertical line mean? If you have a line that just goes straight up and down, what does it mean?
Straight up. No wide slope.
Example means it would be x equals 9. So if I had a line going straight up where x equals 9, what does it mean for slope? Thank you. It is an undefined slope. You need to know that. If it is a horizontal line,
horizontal. There is no slope. Yeah, what she
What would the slope be equal to? Example, y equals 9. What would your slope be equal to there?
nothing.
Really? It's considered a 0 slope. And you need to know that. Undefined and 0 are two different things. And if it's a 0 slope, the way that, you know who taught me this? Miss Umbrell came up with this. Do you see how there's an O in horizontal? Oh, so that helps me remember 0. Okay, that way I can remember that horizontal has an O in it, which is a 0, so that means it has a 0 slope. Okay, because I used to get stuck on which one was which. How is the rate of change related to slope? Come on, people. Slope is the rate of change. In what kind of a function? For a linear function. Okay. What does it mean to have a constant rate of change? Connor, stop talking. That the change in y over the change in x is the same with any 2 points on the line. You have a consistent. You are going to have a straight, linear line. One more topic. Everybody ready? Okay. What is the slope and the x-intercept of a line that contains the point 0, 3, 5, 5, negative 5, 1? Well, there's several ways to skin this cat because they gave you a graph. Okay. So, who is singing?
Brian. Yeah.
Okay. So, I could try and plot these points. 0 and 3. And 5 and 5. And negative 5 and 1. And that gives me a pretty good idea of what that line's going to look like. I could take a ruler and I could sketch that line pretty well, couldn't I? Or I could do this and say, okay, here we go. I've got rise over run. I'm going up 2 and over what? 5. Am I doing that here? Up 2 and over 5. Yes. So I could go down 2, or I could go over 2, down 2 and over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I would have something that would give me a line, wouldn't I? Now, could I be really absolutely sure that it crosses at 8? Really? Think so? Because if I go up 2, I'm going up 2 and over 5. I'm not perfectly sure it is there, right? Okay, well, that's good. What? So we know our slope on our graph is what? 2/5, right? 2 over 5. Okay. We know where the y-intercept is, right? Because the y-intercept is always where x equals 0. So the y-intercept is what? Or where we cross the, it's 3. So our y-intercept is 3. So that's our b value, right? Everybody knows that? That's the y-intercept. So to find x-intercept of a line, use y equals mx plus b, then plug 0 in for y, because you need where y is equal to 0, don't you, for an x-intercept. The x-intercept is where y is equal to 0. All right, so you're going to plug 0 in for y and solve for x. Example, my y-intercept is 3, right? So I know I can do this. My b value is 3, and we know that our rise over our run was 2 over 5. So I have this to do. 0. I've got a I should write down my equation. Y equals mx plus b. So I have 0 is equal to 2/5 x plus 3. And if I do that, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. And I get 2/5 x is equal to -3. And now I am going to, how do I get rid of that 2/5? No! Multiply by what? The reciprocal. I heard somebody say it. Reciprocal. If I multiply this by 5 halves, I multiply this side by 5 halves. That takes care of that, and I get x is equal to -3 times 5 halves. Well, that's really easy to do because -3 times 5 is -15. And -3 times 2 is what? 6, right? You're only going to use one negative. Sorry. Okay. And so now I've got what am I doing? It's 2. Why didn't anybody correct me? Because I've got -3 times 5 over 2. Well, that's what I'm looking at. So I've got -15 over 2. Correct? So can I simplify that? If it was a decimal, what would it be? Right. Or -7.5. Okay. Now, I'm going to do this. I'm going to move this over because I need that space. So I said this is -3 over 1 times 5 over 2 gave us -15 over 2. All right, so now you all should know this because this is the easy way. With a calculator, I write my equation. Y equals 2/5 x plus 3. That's y1. y2 is going to be what? 0. Okay. And then hit graph. Second, trace. Enter. 5. And then you hit enter, enter, enter. 3 times. Okay? And you will find that the intersection is negative 7.50 because that is going to give you the x-intercept, okay, on a linear equation. So your 0 is negative 7.5. X is equal to negative 7.5, okay? What are the key attributes to be identified with a function? Slope, the 0, which is what? X-intercept is your 0, okay? On a linear in function, right? Think about it on a quadratic. Wasn't the zeros where it crosses the x-axis? We use that term with quadratics. And the x and y intercepts. How are the x-intercepts related to the zeros of the function? The intercepts, sorry, because we won't have intercepts on a linear function. We will have intercept, is the point where the line crosses the x-axis. Okay? The 0 is the value of x. So here you've got a point, an x and y point. The 0 is where is the value of x when y is equal to 0. So when y is equal to 0 in our situation up there, x was equal to negative 7.5. So there is a slight difference in what the answer would be if it's an what is the x-intercept? You give a coordinate point, whereas if it's asked what is the 0 of the function, you would give x equals 7.5. And let's see here. Let's see, 5, 10. Oh, there's only 26.